My son took my plate and dropped it onto the kitchen floor. It didn't slip. He dropped it deliberately. "You live here for free?" he said through clenched teeth, like I had embarrassed him. The plate broke with a sound so sharp it seemed to slice through more than porcelain. It had a chipped corner, already part of a set from my wedding. Now it lay shattered, and so did something in me. No one said a word. Not Leah, his wife. Not the guests. I just stood there. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply looked down at the scattered meat, mashed potatoes, and broken china and felt hollow. 5 years ago, he was a different man. When his first wife left him, he had called me in tears. "Mom, I'm drowning. I don't know how to be a dad on my own." Without hesitation, I sold my condo in Cincinnati and moved into his 2-bedroom home in Columbus. I came to help raise Emily, who was just 2 then. I didn't expect anything in return. I just showed up as mothers do. When he couldn't pay the mortgage, I covered it $3,000 a month, pulled from my late husband's pension and my retirement. Quietly, repeatedly. When he remarried, I made space. I moved my things into the guest room. I kept cooking, cleaning, picking up Emily from school. I became the silent heartbeat of their home. And yet, piece by piece, I was erased. I wasn't invited to family pictures. I wasn't asked to join dinners. Behind closed doors, I became her. But I stayed. For Emily. For peace. Until that night when my plate hit the floor. And I saw Emily watching from the hallway, small hand clutching the banister. Her wide eyes asked what words could not. That broke me more than the plate ever could. That night, after the guests had gone, no one came to my room. Not Paul, not Leah. No apology. No knock. No words. I lay awake staring at the ceiling while laughter floated up from downstairs. They were still celebrating while I lay there in silence, heart aching. Have you ever felt like a ghost in your own family? The next morning I sat alone in the kitchen. The house was too quiet, as if everyone had agreed to ignore my existence. No one greeted me. Then I heard Leah's voice from down the hall. She was on the phone. She's still here. I don't know why. Paul says she's harmless, but honestly, it's getting pathetic. She said it so casually, so coldly, and I didn't even flinch. I just sipped my coffee black and cold and pulled out my phone. I opened my banking app. For nearly 5 years, every single month, I had transferred $3,000 to Paul's account. Rent, daycare bills, groceries, he never asked, but he expected it. And I gave. Because I believed that holding a family together meant giving without conditions. That morning I scrolled through the transfer history. Swipe. $3,000. Swipe. $3,000. I did the math slowly. $182,000. And what had I gotten in return? A guest room, dirty dishes, and silence. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt invisible. Later, I went to my closet to find something comforting. Maybe the old box of letters Paul had written as a boy, but it was gone. Leah must have thrown it out. That night, lying stiff on the guest mattress, I realized I no longer existed in this house. No framed photos with me in them. No one remembered my birthday. Not even a card. And that was the moment I stopped waiting for gratitude. I began preparing quietly to reclaim something I had buried for far too long. My worth. Saturday morning, I woke up before the sun. Not because I had to, just because sleep no longer came easy. The house was silent. Still. But my thoughts weren't. They moved restlessly, circling the same painful truth. I had become invisible in the very home I helped build. I walked to the kitchen barefoot on the cold tiles. I poured myself a cup of tea, the same chipped mug with fading blue flowers I'd used for years. I sat alone at the table, hands cradling the warmth, but my heart remained cold. That quiet emptiness that used to scare me now gave me clarity. For so long, I'd convinced myself that being needed meant I mattered. But being needed was not the same as being respected. On impulse, I went to my bedroom closet. I pulled out the old accordion folder where I kept my papers, tax forms, insurance statements, pension records. I didn't know what I was looking for, just a need to feel like I still existed. On paper, if nowhere else. And that's when I found them printouts from my bank, dated as far back as 5 years ago. Dozens of them. I had forgotten that I used to print each statement every few months, just in case. For accountability. For truth. I brought them to the table, began laying them side by side, forming a mosaic of sacrifice. Page after page, transfer after transfer, always the same $3,000, $3,000, $3,000. I opened my calculator, typed in the numbers with shaking fingers. $182,000. That's how much I had given Paul, quietly, faithfully, without question, without condition, without so much as a thank you. My hands veined and worn from a lifetime of cooking, cleaning, and comforting trembled as I stared at the total. My chest tightened, not from anger, but from the sheer weight of realization. I had poured love and security into this family like water into a bottomless pot, and no one noticed when I ran dry. I closed my eyes and whispered, what would happen if I just stopped? And to my surprise, that question didn't frighten me. It freed me. That same morning, I opened my laptop, logged into the bank, clicked Cancel Recurring Transfer. It was one button, a single soft click, but it was the loudest declaration I had made in years. I printed every single transfer receipt, 5 years' worth. I placed them carefully into a large manila envelope and wrote on the front for my own record. No threats, no letters, just proof. Not for them. For me. Because I finally remembered I still mattered. I always had. They just forgot. But now I remembered. And I wasn't going to let them forget again. The following Monday, my phone rang. I looked at the screen. It was Paul. Once. Twice. 6 times. I didn't answer. For years, I had picked up his calls immediately, even in the middle of dinner, even if I was at the doctor's office. Because when your child calls, your heart answers first, but not this time. By Wednesday, there was a knock at my bedroom door, the first knock in years. It wasn't a polite gesture. It was the sound of panic. I opened it slowly. Paul stood there, phone in hand, face tight and confused. The confident posture I once knew was gone. He looked rattled. Mom, he started. Did something happen with the bank? The mortgage didn't go through. I didn't blink. I didn't soften. Instead, I gestured to the dining table where the manila envelope sat. The pages inside told the story. I stopped sending the money, I said simply. He blinked, stunned. Wait. What? Why I didn't raise my voice? I didn't argue. I simply said, because I've already given enough, Paul. More than enough. He walked into the dining room without asking, just like always, and picked up the file. His eyes moved across the printouts. $3,000, $3,000, $3,000. His lips parted slightly. You kept all this. I did, I said calmly, because someday I knew I might need to remind myself that I mattered. He didn't say anything. He just stood there holding the weight of my history in his hands. I'm not angry, I added gently, but I'm tired, and I won't be invisible in this house anymore. He looked up sharply. What do you mean? I said I'm leaving. For a second, his expression cracked. Leaving, he repeated like the word was foreign. Yes, I said. I found a small apartment, a few blocks from the park. It's nothing fancy, but it has a porch and a window that catches the afternoon sun. But what about Emily? He asked, his voice finally cracking. I'll still see her, I assured him, but I won't live here like a ghost anymore. He stared at me speechless, and I realized for the first time he was finally seeing me, not as a mother, not as a helper, but as a person. 2 weeks later, I packed my things. There were no dramatic goodbyes, no begging, no tears. Paul didn't offer to help. Leah didn't even come out of the bedroom. I folded my clothes one by one, laid them carefully in the suitcase I'd had since 1985. I packed Emily's drawing of the two of us at the park, the chipped blue mug, and the manila envelope. That envelope was not proof for Paul. It was proof for me. The movers arrived right on time. I paid them in cash from my own account. The same account Paul used to take from every month, silently, indirectly, but now fully mine again. As they carried the last box out, I looked around the guest room one final time. It was never mine, not really. A borrowed space, a placeholder, a silence chamber. But I didn't feel sad. I felt still, peaceful. No one said goodbye. No one even walked me to the door. And yet, for the first time in years, I felt like I was walking into something instead of away from it. My new apartment was small, just one bedroom, a modest kitchen, and a balcony barely wide enough for a chair. But it was mine. I sat out there that first night with a glass of iced tea, watching the sunset beyond the trees. I heard children laughing in the distance and leaves rustling in the wind. The kind of quiet that doesn't ache, but heals. Inside, there were no family photos on the wall yet. No dishes waiting to be cleaned. No footsteps stomping above me. Just space. I didn't cry. I didn't miss the house. Because the truth is, I had already left long ago. That body left with boxes, but my spirit had gone the moment Paul dropped the plate. That sound still echoed in my memory, but it no longer hurt. It was just a turning point. I spent the next few days making the apartment feel like home. I set up a small bookshelf, bought a new lamp, hung a photo of me and Emily at the county fair. I made muffins and froze half of them, because now I could do things in my own rhythm. No one to clean up after, no one to wait on, no one to tiptoe around. And for the first time in decades, I remembered what it was like to live for myself. 3 months passed. The leaves began to turn from summer green to the warm amber and crimson of early fall. Outside my apartment, the trees danced gently in the breeze, and the sidewalk was dotted with golden specks. I swept my porch every morning, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I placed a small chair beside the window and a shelf filled with books I had promised myself to read someday. Finally, someday had arrived. And the best part of it all, Emily visited every Saturday. Paul never asked if she could come. Emily insisted, and I never said no. We baked muffins together. Blueberry was her favorite. She stirred while I poured. I taught her how to crack an egg with one hand, and she giggled every time I got a shell in the batter. We drew chalk art on the patio stick figures, stars words like Grammy's Place and Love Lives Here. She picked flowers from the corner lot and stuck them into old mason jars. One afternoon she turned to me and said, "Grammy, your house smells like hugs." That sentence alone made everything worth it. I didn't ask about Paul. I didn't mention Leah. I didn't need to. My home was now a sanctuary, a place where silence wasn't suffocating but soft. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt free. It was a Thursday. Rain had been falling since morning, thin, steady, and cold. The kind of rain that dampens everything, including thoughts you thought you had buried. I was folding laundry in my small living room when I heard it. A knock. Soft, hesitant. Not the kind of knock from someone angry or entitled, the kind that asks permission. I opened the door and found Paul. He was soaked. His tie hung crooked and water dripped from his sleeves. He looked smaller somehow, not physically, but in spirit. "Can I come in?" he asked, voice low. I stepped aside without a word. He walked in slowly, glancing around like he had entered a sacred place, one he wasn't sure he was allowed to touch. He sat in my old armchair, the same one he used to curl up in as a child with a book and a blanket. Back when life was simpler, back when he still saw me. He didn't speak at first. Neither did I. Finally, he said it quiet, almost a whisper. She left. I didn't have to ask who. She took her things. He continued, eyes locked on the wooden floor. Said she was tired of pretending she respected me. I didn't say I was sorry. Not because I wasn't, but because he didn't need pity. He needed truth, space, presence. He kept talking. I found Emily crying in her room last week, he said. She said she missed Grammy, said our house doesn't feel like home anymore. He looked up at me. This time his eyes were no longer defensive or proud. They were just human. You were right, he whispered, about everything. I nodded slowly, not triumphant, just still. I didn't leave to punish you, Paul, I said. I left because I had to stop punishing myself. He put his face in his hands, elbows resting on his knees. He looked like the boy I used to hold after nightmares. I don't know how to fix this, he said. You don't have to fix everything. I replied gently. You just have to show up. Start small. He looked at me again, and this time I knew he saw me. Paul didn't call again for a while, and I didn't expect him to. But then one Saturday morning he dropped Emily off himself. No Leah, no rush, just him. He stood at my doorway awkwardly holding her little backpack. I thought maybe I could come too, he said. Just for a bit. I stepped aside. Of course. We didn't talk much that morning. Emily ran into the kitchen and started sorting cookie cutters, already deciding we were making star-shaped ones today. Paul just stood there for a while watching her. Then he quietly rolled up his sleeves and helped me stir the dough. He didn't say, I'm sorry. He didn't talk about money, or the envelope, or the months I spent in silence. But that morning he stayed, and the next Saturday, he came again. At first it was just short visits. He'd sit quietly while Emily played sometimes, joining her, sometimes just sipping coffee and looking out the window. One morning, he brought flowers. For the table, he said simply. Another time, he fixed the squeaky hinge on my front door without being asked. Then one weekend, Emily had a small recital at school. She was playing the triangle Nothing Grand, but it mattered to her. I showed up early, found my seat near the front. And just before the lights dimmed, Paul walked in, looked around, then he sat beside me. He didn't check his phone, didn't shift uncomfortably. He just watched Emily like she was playing at Carnegie Hall. Afterward, he walked me to my car. No rush, just a quiet stroll. You look happy, he said. I smiled. I am. He didn't need to say anything else, because in that moment I knew he was finally showing up. Not because I asked, not because I funded his mortgage, but because he remembered how to care. Paul never said thank you for the money. Not once. He never tried to repay the $182,000. Never brought up the bank statements I had printed. Never asked about the pension, the sacrifice, or the years I gave up for him. And that's okay, because I didn't need repayment. What I needed was dignity, respect, a chair at the table, a name spoken, not avoided. And slowly, without saying a word, Paul gave that back. He didn't return with flowers and a speech. He returned with silence and presence. He came early some Saturdays just to help wash the dishes after Emily and I baked. He fixed a drawer in my kitchen that had been stuck for years. He showed up at parent-teacher conferences, making sure Emily knew her family sat together, now one row, not split apart. He listened when I spoke, even if it was just about what I was reading or a new muffin recipe. He remembered how to be a son, not just biologically, but emotionally. And in those little moments, I felt something shift. It wasn't about power. It wasn't about control. It wasn't even about forgiveness. It was about being seen again. I didn't yell. I didn't demand. I just stood still long enough for the truth to catch up. One day, as we sat on my porch, watching the squirrels chase each other in the trees, Paul leaned back and said, "I think." I never realized how much you held everything together. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. He wasn't looking for comfort. He was telling me in his own way, "I remember you now." Now I sit on this little porch with a soft fall breeze brushing across my face. The leaves have all changed. Rust and gold scatter the sidewalk below. A new season has arrived, not just outside, but in me. I sip my tea slowly, not out of habit, but out of appreciation. Emily's chalk drawings still decorate the edge of the patio. Faded hearts, smiling suns, Grammy's place in pink and purple. She comes every week, sometimes with Paul, sometimes alone. She brings new drawings, tells me stories from school, asks to make muffins. Nothing has changed for her really, because in her eyes I never left. And in truth, I didn't leave her. I left a house that didn't love me. There's no plaque on my door, no headlines written about my story. But here in this quiet space, filled with soft light, I feel something grander than victory. I feel dignity. Not once did I raise my voice. I didn't slam the door. I didn't curse anyone. I didn't get revenge. I just stood still long enough for the truth to find its voice. I remembered who I was. And in doing so, I gave them a chance to remember too. Sometimes strength doesn't roar. It doesn't fight back. Sometimes strength is silence, distance, peace. I never got revenge. I got something better myself. Have you ever felt erased by the very people you gave your whole life to? Have you stayed silent, selfless, giving only to one day realize no one even sees you anymore? If this story touched something in your heart, please share your own experience in the comments below. Whether it's pain healing or quiet strength, your voice deserves to be heard. You are not alone. You matter. And you deserve to live with dignity. Thank you for listening to this story. If you saw yourself in these words, please remember, silence isn't weakness. Letting go isn't losing. Sometimes peace is the most powerful thing you can choose.